Alright everyone, Newline 2019, and I'm here together with Kristoff. Hey.
Yes. Hi.
You are an amateur radio
I'm a radio amateur.
guy.
I'm an amateur radio guy, yes.
Amateur radio guy. So what does that mean and how long have you been doing it?
Okay, been doing this, well, officially I got my license in 1992, so more than 25 years now, I think. But I actually got more or less active in 2010, so that's 9 years ago. So my goal, what we're doing here, is try to bridge the amateur radio community and the hacker community. I've done a lot of talks and presentations. Well, this is my first workshop that we did, but we've done a lot of talks in Hackerspaces, and we also at FOSDEM.
And you actually, what you want to do is, so you have the amateur radio scene,
Yes.
and then you have the hacker scene,
Yes.
and you want those people to merge because right now they're not really the same.
Well, there's
crowd.
there's a different generation. Radio amateurs are usually a lot older, and you have younger people. And for my background, because I have both an IT background, being software guy, and Unix and Linux and open source, and also on the other side I have electronics. And radio, I try to sit kind of in between those two. So the reason I'm here, I think it's the second time we were at Newline.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I just gave a presentation on what is amateur radio.
Yes.
And we want to do something special this time and say we're going to do a workshop.
So what did you do?
So the workshop was called Receiving Images from Satellites Using the RTL Dongle. So this is the RTL dongle that everybody talks about.
Okay, so to understand, so these are dongles, right?
Yes.
So what you do is you look at a close-up later, so you can see, so we can edit this in. So what you do with this, you actually attach this to an antenna.
Yes.
And then you receive images
From satellites.
from satellites.
Or from the ISS, the International Space Station.
So that's pretty mind-blowing if you think about it. So things from satellites from the ISS, you are actually like the space station. You are just receiving with your.
Yes, but this thing actually costs 8 or 10 euros or something. Kind of depends on what you want. So
for 8 to 10 euros, you can receive a feed from the ISS itself.
Yes.
Wait, at that moment, are you then stealing images, or how does that work?
There are a couple of things that you can receive from satellites, like weather images. You know, there's things that you see on the news. They are free to receive. On this case of the ISS actually has a amateur radio station on the ISS, and it transmits either speech, or can be packet that it does, or it can do images. So a couple of weeks ago there were special events and it was broadcasting images. And we try to show, because, well, amateur radio usually has the name of being old-fashioned, where people talking a microphone and doing Morse code or doing that. And what we try to show is that, well, radio amateurs also enters the 21st century. And we do, well, kind of geeky stuff also.
I have never associated amateur radio with satellites, or radio with satellites actually.
Yeah, well.
But it's the same thing. Is that?
Well, radio is radio. That's the way to communicate with people, actually, where you transmit radio signals.
Mm-hmm.
And there happens to be something that repeats radio signals, which happens to be something that flies over in space.
It's a bit higher.
Well, it's 400 kilometers for the ISS. So at FOSDEM, for instance, to give you an idea, at FOSDEM there was something called a school contact.
Yes.
So that means that you have a secondary school, I don't know how you say it in correct English, in Portugal, and they had a little chat with an astronaut on the ISS. Well, pretty chat is not really the word. They actually had a couple of lists. They had a list of a couple of questions they had beforehand. They were transmitted, and the students were in Portugal using an amateur radio station talking to the ISS, and the guy, the Canadian astronaut, actually talked back. And at FOSDEM we were able to receive using, well, it was not an RTL dongle, it was just a normal receiver and an antenna like that you can hold in your hand, and you could follow things. Actually, so it's quite neat. There's quite a lot of interest in what exactly was radio. Radio is something that kind of flops in the air, and
yes,
nobody really understands what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what we try to show is what radio really is.
Yes.
And this is why this dongle is so good, because it's very cheap. 8 to 10 euros. You can have software. We can visually see what actually radio looks like. You can see visuals actually. It's a bit hard to explain without images, but you can really visually see what a radio signal looks like.
Can you link us to somewhere where we can see these things?
Yes, you just go to websdr.org. Websdr.org, which is a receiver. Well, not using this, but using more expensive equipment. But you can just go on the internet and say, I want to listen to this piece of radio spectrum, and you're going to hear some other stuff. So our goal here today was to have a workshop. It was 2 parts. It was a hardware element. It was actually building an antenna to show that people can actually build their own antenna.
So the people here at Newline built their own antenna?
Yes. So that was just flat wire. It was not the most difficult antenna, of course. It was the first time people did that.
Uh-huh.
And there was a software part. That was my thing. So we were actually 2. So I was there, and Krist, which is the somebody from the Radio Club for Roeselare, was there, and he gave the antenna part. And the workshop was limited to 10 people. That was something that we really put a limit on. 5 of them first did the software part, and 5 did the antenna, and then halfway around we switch around.
Okay, cool.
The antenna is important because some people think, well, this is high-tech and geeky and so on, but an antenna is just a piece of wire, but without the antenna, you're not going to receive anything.
Yeah.
So we try to show people that an antenna, as dumb as it may be, as just a piece of wire, is actually a very critical thing of your receiver. Mm-hmm. And we try to explore a little bit of what antenna looks like, how it works, and how we can tune it to a certain frequency, in this case to receive either the amateur radio satellites, or the ISS, or weather satellites. And he did the hardware part. I did a little bit of software part on Linux, and a couple of applications that we try to show how it actually works using, well, something like the WebSDR, but done on your computer, where you can visually see the signals, radio signals, and then you can link them using a software loop to an application that actually decodes the signals, radio signals come in to make them into pictures. That was the goal. So I tried to show what actually...
So did people receive pictures during the workshop?
Yeah, we had a small demo, which was kind of nice. The idea we had was, okay, we're going to listen to a satellite. The problem is you can only hear satellites when a satellite's flying over. So we have satellites which are geostationary. That means they have a fixed position.
Yes.
So that's not easy. That's not difficult.
This is like a satellite that like follows the Earth
at the same rate as the Earth rotates around its axis.
So to us, it's like standing still in the sky.
Yeah. So there was a demonstration where Krist had a satellite dish, and he could actually receive. There's a geostationary satellite. It's called Oscar 1200. I can't always forget the number. Mm-hmm. And using a normal television, or satellite television dish, and a normal LMB, the receiving element, we were able to actually hear radio amateurs talking to each other over the satellite. So the demo, the workshop here was only receiving, but as a radio amateur, we're allowed to transmit, so we can actually transmit signals into a satellite, which then fans back to us.
That's the default awesome fun thing that you have in your mind as from radio amateurs, is that they have all this cool gear that they understand, and then they're like suddenly talking to someone in Canada or talking to someone
in this case, the satellite has a fingerprint that actually goes North Pole, South Pole, and then up to, I think you said Canada and Brazil, and then the other way around up to India, etc. So it's quite nice.
So if people would want to try this or do this or learn more in this direction of understanding radio amateur or amateur radio, and also like communicating with satellites, I mean, that's pretty amazing. Everyone can communicate with a satellite if they would want to do that.
Well, okay. Thing is, radio amateurs need to have a license, and the license is linked to a technical exam.
Okay.
Very usual way I explain this is a bit like a driver's license.
Okay.
You need to show that you know how to drive a car. Thing is that radio signals do not stop at the edge of your house. As a radio amateur, I'm allowed to build my own transmitters. I live about 8 kilometers from the airport in Volstand. Mm-hmm. I do not want to have that I transmit something that happens to interfere with the instrument landing system on the airport, right?
Yeah.
So you need to know what you're doing. That's one thing. And the second thing, don't blow up yourself.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, well, I have a license to do 1,500 watts. That means I'm pumping 3 to 4 kilowatts into an amplifier. You better know what you're doing, or you really could.
Yeah, it's serious.
So that's not, of course, not everybody does that, but your license allows you to do that. So you need to show that you have a technical capability, as you need to have a driver's license to show that you can drive a car.
But then if
you pass the exam, then you are allowed to transmit, and you are able to talk to people over satellites.
Okay, so where should you start? Like, what should you do? How do you begin with this hobby, or?
Well, usually with this thing, with the RTL dongle, that's the reason why we're here.
That's a good starting point.
This is actually a good starting point because you're close to nothing. Well,
yes.
€8, that's what, 3 cups of coffee or something. And you start, exploring what's around you. You make an antenna, you put it outside your house if possible, not inside your house. Either you don't hear anything or you just hear noise from your computers. You just put it outside your house and you listen what's around. That was also part of the workshop. So you have your dongle, listen. This is a FM broadcasting station. You could listen to your broadcasting station. This is something else. This is data. And what does data look like? And kind of people get a feeling of what actually is around them. People don't really... they have an idea of radio, but they don't really know how it actually works. You can show this is, I don't know, a GG system. This is LoRa. You can actually show what it looks like. And this is to give people an idea of what it is.
Cool.
When I gave the workshop, in FOSDEM we have using the web SDR, you can see the radio signal of DCF77. No, DCF77 probably doesn't say much. That's the thing that makes, if you have what's called atomic clock, a clock that you could buy which actually sets its time for itself. How does it actually do that? Okay, there's a radio transmitter somewhere in the clock, and you can actually show using the web SDR, you can see the signals and you see small bursts of beep, beep, of either 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds, and you can explain this is 1, this is 0, and every minute there's one where there is no noise, so this is the start of the minute. And you can start explaining to people what radio actually does. Not that's something that's in the air, but that's really what radio signals look like and how they operate on why does your clock set its time correctly by itself. Because there's somebody in Frankfurt having a transmitter which sends out radio signals with a certain format, and that your radio clock can actually, your clock can work. So we try to explain what is radio.
Radio is more than just radio.
Radio is more than, and that's what we show. From people getting interested in that, and they would do, okay, what's your next step? Okay, I'll see if I can start transmitting, and then you get them. And start to show how things work, and people interested in Wi-Fi, and then you show what Wi-Fi works, and it's kind of goes both ways.
The amateurs community have to learn from each other.
So the camera girl wants to know. The very intelligent, good question.
Yes, that's a good question.
So what she wanted to ask is, what does the hacker community and the radio community, what should they learn from each other?
The radio community, I've tried not to insult too many people, but they kind of, being an older generation, a lot of them actually lost their thrill to learn how stuff really works. And this is something that the hacker and the maker community has. They're really interested in stuff, how it works, and really go into deep, not just using it, but actually understanding how it works inside out. And I think that's important that we could do that way. The other way around is that we just try to show what is radio. Because a lot of people use radio. We use mobile phones that has radio. We use GPS. We have your broadcasting station. So we try to show what radio actually is. And that's the way we show them that radio is no magic. And we show the radio amateurs that being interested in stuff and not being afraid of software, because radio and communication, a lot more software, is an important element. And you don't have to be afraid to open the box, being either hardware or software. Thank you.
Kristoff,
yes.
Thank you very much, and enjoy Newline 2019.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.